3 of science, the ATP cycle. Okay, and in this lesson, okay, yes, Anna, you are doing academic concept 2, and Benjamin, I'm going to help you through academic concept 1. Don't worry. Okay, so we'll work things through. Okay, so now let's get on with the lesson, and I really appreciate all those who volunteered for doing the lesson and preparing. Okay, I think that is a lot funner way of doing the class. So let's go and talk about the review of the lesson. So I'm going to bring here, if I can, this okay, play the video, and let's see, I'm going to mute the volume, and then we'll go to the last part, okay, of the video. So probably last minute. So this is kind of a review of what happens in here. Okay, so yeah, we're about there. So Connor, are you ready to do the review for us? Okay.
Sure.
All right. So I'm going to play the video, and I want you to, the last part here of the video, and I want you to explain to me what is it that you are seeing. So here what we are going to do is reviewing the cellular respiration processes and each one of the different parts of the process. Okay. So what is it that we are seeing right here? What do you think that is that we are seeing here, Connor? What is this part?
That would be the that would probably be the cell wall.
Yes, the cell membrane. Probably this one is the cell wall, okay, or it would be maybe an artery, a blood vessel, okay. So this is the space between the blood vessel and the cell membrane, all right. And what do you think that this part is?
That would be probably the nucleus.
Does it look like a nucleus, or what does it look like more?
I don't really
okay.
know. I don't really know.
Okay, no problem. All right. So Haley says a transport chamber. So it's probably more like a transport protein. All right. And see, it's letting the molecules. What would these molecules be? What do you think this would be? This is kind of review from the previous lesson, from the last lesson. Okay. What do you think that these blue molecules will be? Okay. Electrons. Sugars, okay, so yes, there are sugars. We talk about, okay, we talk about that also, okay. All right, Connor is talking, asking for a please, okay. Can we pick someone else? All right, okay. So these are probably glucose sugars. It's not DNA. Remember that DNA is like a double helix. Okay, so things look what they are. All right, let me see if I go here to the presentation. Okay, here we have in the presentation that the molecule of the sugars, okay, they look like a ring. Sometimes they are on a chain, okay, but they are basically 6 carbons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 carbons. The red ones are oxygen, and the white ones are hydrogen. And so in here, when we see this representation here, that would be also the ring of the carbons, okay? And so here we are seeing the carbons going from the blood vessel into the cell membrane through a protein, okay? And what is the first step of the cellular respiration process, okay? What is the first step of the cellular respiration process? Glycolysis, says Haley. Excellent. Okay, and Spencer, great. And what is the result of this first step? What happens during this first step of glycolysis? What is the main result of glycolysis? So energy is harvested as ATP. So it produces, glycolysis produces 2 molecules of ATP. So both Haley, did I say FTP? No, it's ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Okay, so 2 ATPs is the product of glycolysis. All right, excellent. And what happens next? What is the next process in cellular respiration? Okay, what would this be? What is this part we present here? Okay, all this area that you have one membrane, another membrane. Haley says, is that the mitochondria? Yes, it's a mitochondria. Okay, and so yes. All right, Aubrey also says mitochondria. Great. So what happens is in glycolysis, the glucose is divided into 2 pyruvates that are 3 carbons each, okay? So the 6 are broken into 2, and then they go into the next step, that is oxidation of pyruvate. Oxidation of pyruvate. Let's see what happens next. So then after the oxidation of pyruvate, we have the first step, which is the citric acid cycle. And the citric acid cycle produces 2 more ATP. And then the 4th step is the electron transport chain. Okay, and what does the electron transport chain produce? What is the end result of the electron transport chain? Okay. What is the end result of the electron transport chain? More ATP. Okay. And how much more ATP? 32, that's right, 32 ATP. So it actually produces a lot more. And today we are going to concentrate in learning about what happens with this ATP. So we see that this is the review. So last lesson we were talking about the different steps here in this cycle. Glycolysis that happens in the cytosol, then the oxidation of pyruvate, the citric acid cycle that also gives up 2 ATP, and that happens inside the mitochondria, in the matrix of the mitochondria, and then the electron transport chain that happens in the inner membrane of the mitochondria, okay? Yeah, so Aubrey says, that's right, so it produces ATP, carbon dioxide, and water. All right, excellent. and that is where we have in the presentation the chart that we have here in the presentation of what happens. So we start with the glucose, we add oxygen. Oxygen is needed for the last step. The oxygen is needed here for the last step of the electron transport chain. Without oxygen, all these other three steps would not happen in the mitochondria. Okay, that is the reason for oxygen. We need oxygen for the oxidation of pyruvate, and we need oxygen here for the electron transport chain. And the oxygen is going to be the final acceptor of the electrons here of the hydrogen in order to form water. Okay, so you see the oxygen here in the glucose, plus half of the oxygen in there is going to form the carbon dioxide, and then the other 6 oxygens are going to use all these hydrogen atoms and are going to form water. So the metabolic waste that Aubrey says here is the carbon dioxide and the water. Excellent. Okay, so that is what we have done for the review. So now, Haley, could you unmute yourself, and then we are going to do here the attention activity. Okay, and I want to ask you some questions. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to unmute Anna. Anna, you are unmuted, and Haley, if you could unmute yourself. Okay. Haley, yes, excellent. All right. So, Haley, let's try to understand this. Okay. We learn here that the process of respiration, of cellular respiration, breaks down the bonds of carbon, okay, in the glucose molecule, and every time that one of these bonds is broken, gives off energy, and then the energy is transferred into ATP. Okay, so we see that here. So the breaking down of the carbon results on ATP. All right, we also see it here in the presentation how all the carbon is separated. Now, what is the big deal about that? What happens? Why is it that I need to break down the carbon into ATP? What do you think?
Well, I think it's probably because ATP is easier to process or something like that, that it might be more simple to, it does what you need it to do, rather than the carbon can't necessarily do that as well.
That's right. That is exactly right. Okay. And I thought of a little analogy. I don't know if this is kind of a silly analogy or what, okay? But, suppose that you go to a store and you are going to buy things at a store, okay? But in this store, you only can pay one item at a time, okay? So you buy one thing, you have to pay, okay? So every time that you buy something, you pay, all right? And this store doesn't have any change, and no change, okay? So whenever you buy something, you pay for the item, that's it. The store doesn't give you any change. Would you go to the store with $100 bills?
No way. That would be a waste of money.
That would be a total waste of money, okay? Could you buy things with $100 bills?
Well, you could buy really expensive things, but not small things.
That's right. You wouldn't be able. Well, you could buy them, but you would be wasting a lot. Okay. You could still do it. Okay. You know. So what would you prefer to take to this store? Okay. So this store that you have to buy one item at a time. Okay. So Jacob says it would be extremely wasteful. Yeah. Extremely
Very much
wasteful.
so.
So what would you, if you go to this store where you have to buy one item at a time and the store doesn't have any change, what would you take?
Probably $1 bills or thing smaller than that,
Yeah.
as small as I could go.
That's right, yeah. So you would take $1 bills, okay, maybe $5 bills, but even a $10 bill would be kind of wasteful sometimes. Okay, if you go and buy some candy or a piece of lettuce, okay, with $10, it will still be a lot of waste. Okay. Yeah. So let's try to think how is this similar to using energy? All right. How is this similar to using energy? In the cell, we start with chemical energy in the carbons, okay? And we end up, so how many bonds are there in the cell, in the molecule of cellulose, of glucose, sorry. How many carbon bonds are there in the glucose molecule?
Isn't there 6?
6, okay. So whatever energy is there, I can only break it down in 6 parts, okay? How many molecules of ATP do I finish with at the end of cellular respiration?
We end up with 34 to 36.
Yes, and each one of those I can use for one reaction, okay? And so you see that if I were to use the energy of breaking one carbon in a reaction, it would be a lot of energy, okay, just at once, but I can still do just one reaction with it. The rest would be wasted. If I waste energy, what is the waste transformed to?
I don't know. I would guess it's probably just lost. Kind of just disappears.
Mm-hmm.
Heat. Does it turn into heat?
Yes, it's heat. Okay, it's heat. So heat is the problem with heat is very useful, of course, but the problem with heat is that it cannot be recaptured easily. Okay, it just dissipates. All right. And so once you break, for example, you transform the chemical energy of a bond, you release that energy. Part of that energy is used for the next reaction. It's like buying the candy. The change is wasted or lost into heat. Okay. Now our bodies, luckily, they use the heat also. All right. But sometimes our bodies also need to get rid of the heat. What happens when we produce too much heat?
I guess I would think that our body temperature goes up, and then we have a fever kind of thing, and then you have to cool off. Maybe
Yeah, you overheat. Okay. What is one way? So one way that our body overheats is when we have a fever. Okay. Sometimes when you are exercising, also you overheat. And how does the body deal with that?
You sweat?
You sweat, yes. So the sweating, okay, basically moves water on top of the skin, and the water then evaporates, and as the water evaporates, it also transfers heat out, okay? So that is how we dissipate heat, all right? Do you know why the dogs are always going, are always panting with their tongues out and their mouth open? They go, do you know why dogs do that?
I guess it would be similar to sweating in a way, just another way to dissipate heat.
That's right, yes. So Josh says they don't sweat. Because they have a fur, they cannot sweat, okay? And so they cool down by basically panting and letting all the moisture in the mouth and everything also evaporate. That is why the dogs pant, okay? And they go all the time. And the more they run and everything, the more they have to go that way. Isn't that cool? Okay. So, yeah, that is, so it's probably also that they are happy, okay? So the trick here in cellular respiration is that we start with these carbon bonds that is like going to the store with $100 bill, okay? And then we end up with the ATP molecules that is like what? What would be that like, Haley?
Like a $1.
Yes, it would be like going with $1 bills. Okay. So the other advantage that ATP has is that ATP is a small molecule and then can go. It goes throughout the cell, and it diffuses throughout the cell, and it goes to many different places everywhere where energy is needed. Okay?
Which is really good because if you couldn't go, maybe carbon can't go everywhere that ATP can. So that's
right. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So the breaking down of the glucose that happens in the cytosol and then inside the mitochondria, the energy there is used for these processes, but then is captured in the ATP molecules, and then the ATP molecules are able to go everywhere where energy is needed. Okay, so that is the trick really of ATP. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, thank you, Haley. I thought that was important because, many times we learn, okay, well, the glucose is broken down and into ATP. Why? What is the difference? Okay, well, the difference is that ATP is really like having a small change. Okay. So, Benjamin, would you like to help us with the next part of the lesson? Okay, so we have academic. If you can unmute, okay, yourself. Excellent, thank you. So the concept here is inside the cell, ATP provides energy for all cellular functions. Okay, so what are some of the cellular functions that would need energy? Benjamin. Okay. Do you have your mic on, Ben? Thank you, Haley. And thank you, Connor. That was a valiant effort. Okay, I cannot hear you. Okay. Okay. Oh, you are thinking. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. What would be some functions, some cellular functions that would need energy. What do you think? We studied about, for example, the ribosome, okay? We studied about the ribosome, about how we also studied about the RNA molecule, how the DNA is transcribed into RNA. We talk about the processes of exocytosis and endocytosis. We talk about some of the processes of proteins, how proteins like actin, they form the microfibers of muscles, okay, and then they contract, okay, in order for the muscles to move, and so on. So what do you think, which of those functions would need energy, Benjamin? What do you think?
Ribosomes.
Okay, so do you think that the ribosomes would need energy?
Yes.
Yes, that's right. The ribosomes need energy, okay? What else? What else do you think that would need energy? Aubrey says photosynthesis, glycolysis, the citric acid cycle, oxidative phosphorylation. Those are some of the things that use energy I can think of if I understand your question. Yes, that is true. So all these processes, okay, all of them need energy. All right, so Benjamin, just think about any time that something moves, it needs energy. So tell me of some of the processes, what are some of the cellular processes that you have learned about now that would need energy? Think about it. So we mentioned the ribosome. What else? What other processes would need energy?
I don't know.
Okay. How about all? What do you think? All of them. Everything needs energy. Okay? All right? Just think about it. What makes, let's say, for example, that you are speaking, okay? What makes your voice sound? What do you think that makes your voice produce sound?
Your voice box.
The what?
Voice box.
The voice box, okay. And what is there in the voice box? What vibrates in the voice box? Over says the vibrations. What is it that vibrates? Do you know?
No.
Chords. So there are chords, there are vocal cords that are really small strings. They are, can you see me in the webcam? They are about here inside the trachea, okay? They are the vocal cords, all right? And they vibrate. They actually vibrate really fast. They move like this all the time, okay? And depending on the sound that you make, they vibrate, you know, they are longer or shorter, okay? And that changes the pitch and the volume of the vocal cords. What do you think that makes them vibrate? What do you think that they need in order to vibrate?
Energy.
Energy, excellent, yeah. Woohoo! Yeah, Haley says that men's are thicker and shorter, and women's vocal cords are thinner and longer. Okay, and that is the difference in the pitch of our voices. Okay, yeah. So energy is needed for the vocal cords to move. And this energy, how do you think that the vocal cords get that energy? What is the star here of this lesson? So Audrey and Haley says here, and Jacob, they say ATP. Yes. So ATP is the carrier of energy for all these things. Okay. You know, for example, now, Benjamin, I imagine that probably you are thinking, okay? So you are thinking, you are trying to think, okay? Maybe you are also sweating, okay? Now, what is all that sweat and thinking coming from? What do you need in order to produce all that, all of that thinking, Ben?
Energy.
Energy, yes, exactly. That's right. And where is that energy coming from?
ATP.
ATP, you are getting the gist of that. Excellent. Yes. Okay. Yes. So Haley says, why do we sweat when we are nervous? Why do we sweat when we are nervous? What do you think? What do you think that we sweat? Why is our temperature going up when we are nervous? Spencer says we are working when we are nervous. Yeah. Chemicals in the brain, yes. So it's a lot of ATP. So what happens is that we may get nervous when we are in a situation where we don't know whether to, you know, what to do, okay? And so all of our attention is engaged in that. It's kind of the fight or flight reaction. And at that point, okay, when we are in that frame of mind, our body starts burning a lot of ATP, it starts using a lot of energy, either to think or be ready to run or be ready to do something. And because we are, you know, kind of nervous, we are not really doing a whole lot, but we are nervous, all that raises the heat, raises the temperature in our bodies. Does that make sense? So that is why when we get nervous, we start sweating, you know. Okay. So, all right. So at least that one, so that makes sense. All right. So chemical reactions are happening and there is extra energy. So we are ready to use it, but we don't know exactly how to use the energy. Okay. So that is why we blush. All right. And our body temperature goes higher. Okay. So in when ATP, the way that ATP releases the energy is through this reaction. Okay, Benjamin, could you read this reaction here that I'm pointing to? Okay.
ATP plus H2O equals
What is H2O?
water.
Water, excellent, good job. Yes.
ADP plus P.
Yes. What do you think? So the ADP, do you know what ADP is?
No.
Okay, so ADP is adenosine diphosphate. Okay, so adenosine diphosphate. All right, and let me go to the presentation here, and so we are going to go, okay, here to this slide. And let me make it bigger so we can see it. So in here in this slide, we have the let's see, not this one, the next one, this one here. We have the same equation, okay, that we saw there. All right, so we have ATP is adenosine triphosphate plus water. They react and they produce ADP, adenosine diphosphate, and then the P is a phosphate, okay, that little phosphate. So that is the last, okay, the phosphate, the I means that it's inorganic. When something doesn't have carbon, it means that it's inorganic, all right? It's not part of an organic compound, all right? So the adenosine triphosphate, how many phosphate groups does it have, Benjamin? It says tri.
Question?
Yes, of course. How many phosphate groups does ATP have?
2.
Let's see, I'm counting here 1, 2, and 3, okay? Okay. So ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. Tri is the prefix for 3, okay? So whenever you see tri, it's 3, all right? The adenosine part is this part of the molecule, this part here. So it's an adenine, which is these 2 rings with nitrogen, okay, and carbon, you see those? And then there's a sugar, a ribose sugar with 5 carbons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 carbons. Okay, so it's not glucose, it's ribose, that is 5 carbons. Okay, and then there's 3 phosphate groups. You see one here, another one there, and then this one here, the tri. I couldn't find a picture with the chain extended, so I would have preferred using that. Okay, and so what happens in this reaction for the ATP to release the energy is that a molecule of water comes here and is going to break this bond here between the 2 last phosphate groups. Okay, and so you see now the hydrogen goes here to this, the last phosphate group, and we end up with 1 phosphate free, liberated. Okay, and so this adenosine diphosphate, what does di mean? What is the prefix di? If tri means 3, what is di, Benjamin?
4.
Tetra is 4. Okay, tetra is 4. So di is 2. Okay, So these are all, you know, a lot of Latin, either Latin or Greek terminology, okay? So di is 2, tri, 3, tetra, 4, hepta, okay? Hepta is 5, and hexa is 6, okay? All right? So di is 2. So diphosphate means 1 and 2 phosphates here. And see, you see the last phosphate is broken up, okay? And so the reaction here is ATP plus the water forms ADP and the phosphate and releases the energy. And what is that energy then used for, Benjamin? What is the energy they are used for? Spencer says, everything. Yes, for everything that you needed. Okay, so it would be for the ribosome or anything, you know, that is needing to have that energy. Excellent. Okay. Good deal. Well, thank you. Let me grab here, okay, and change the screen. Okay, this video here in the lesson is really, really good at explaining these reactions, okay? So thank you very much, Benjamin, okay? Now we are going to go to the second, okay, academic concept, okay? And Anna, would you like to take us through this? Okay, so the second concept, yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. So this concept is about how the ATP synthase enzyme, how it's a molecular machine that recharges the ADP into ATP. And the ATP synthase enzyme is inside the inner membrane of the mitochondria. And it's the last part of the electron transport chain. And I found it cool how the ADP, after it's been used and it turns into ADP, it goes into the ATP synthase, which is kind of like a machine where it has 10 to 15 protein parts that are connected together. And those parts, they spin around, and that helps to create energy. And let's see.
Isn't that amazing, the amount of the number of these proteins that are there in the mitochondria?
Yeah, there's a lot of them in just one mitochondria.
Yeah.
So the proteins, I guess, they spin around, and it's connected to this one big protein that spins. And as you can see, there's kind of a bump on the bottom of it, and that opens up the proteins on the bottom of the synthase. And when those things open up, the ADP, that enters into the machine, and that allows, the energy from the machine allows the ADP to combine with another phosphate molecule, and that creates another ATP molecule. And then it can go off into the cell to help with the processes of the cell.
That's right, yeah, okay. ADP and phosphate then are rejoined together to form ATP and then be used again for another reaction that needs energy. Okay.
Yeah.
Now that, I don't know about you, but I find that the design of this protein is just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and the video was talking about how it looks a lot like our modern machines.
Yeah. Specifically, which type of machine is similar to this? Do you know? Can you think of one that is kind of similar to this?
Would that be like a generator, maybe?
Yes, yes, Okay. So I put here in the lesson a picture of a hydroelectric plant. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, So in the hydroelectric plant, you have the water on top in the reservoir, that is dam, okay? It has what we call potential energy. Potential energy is basically the energy available to do something, okay?
Yeah.
When the water goes through the dam, it goes down a slide, and the potential energy is transformed into what? What type of energy is this now when the water starts moving?
Kinetic energy?
Kinetic energy, excellent. Yes, The water starts moving the propellers here in the turbine, and that transforms the kinetic energy of the water into what?
Electricity, right?
Eventually it's into electricity. So first it is the kinetic energy of the water is transformed into kinetic energy in the propellers that moves the turbine. The turbine up here has huge magnets, okay? And they go around electric coils of copper wire, all right? And I don't know why it happens, but what happens is that when you move these coils of copper wire around a magnetic field at a speed, they start generating a current of electrons. The electrons in the copper start moving around, and that movement is what we call electricity.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So here, you see how the water in the reservoir has this potential energy, and then is transformed into kinetic energy, and then the kinetic energy is transformed into electricity.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just looking at this picture. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was just looking at this picture. Where does the water go after it turns the turbines?
Oh, it is released after it turns the turbine. It is released down the river.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So it is released, and the water keeps flowing through the river.
Okay.
Good question. Okay. So Connor says that he went to a water power plant to visit that. Okay. That would be very fun to do. Okay. I really want to do that and shoot a video for the class. We will study this more in detail in the physics class when we do physics, probably 2 years from now.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So, and Camden says if you change the coil with a battery, it becomes a motor. That's right. So you can also store the electricity in a battery. The battery transforms the electric current into chemical energy. So the batteries are basically another transformation, okay, of that. Emmeline says something really interesting. She says, so they basically reuse the water for electricity just like ADP is reused. What do you think about that, Anna? How that this is similar to how we reuse ADP and ATP?
I think it's really similar because the ATP, it's used and then it's recharged and then it's just used again. And the same thing with the water. It flows down into the turbine and then it goes back into the river and then it evaporates and goes back into the lake and then continues, I think. I think they're very similar.
That's right, yes, yes. So interesting, Spencer asked, do some of the reservoirs reuse the water? They turn into energy? Okay, and you explain how the water is reused. How is the water being reused? You explained it, Anna. You said it.
Oh, I guess it just keeps turning into, it evaporates and it goes back into the lake and then just keeps going, I guess.
Yeah, so imagine this. Once the water is here in the reservoir, it has potential energy. After the water goes down and into the river, it has lost the potential energy, and the energy is transformed into electricity. Okay? What would be the, we could put the water back in buckets and carry it up to the reservoir again. Okay? But that would take a lot of energy, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, and so what process do we use to put the water back in the reservoir? What process do we use for putting the water back up in the reservoir? We don't carry it up with buckets of water,
I'm guessing we could like pump it up into the reservoir.
Well, we could pump it up, but to make the pumps work, you would need electricity.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And Spencer answers his own question and says, Mother Nature, the water cycle. That's right. Yeah. So Mother Nature evaporates the water, puts the water up in clouds. The clouds go through the mountains, it rains, and then the water is captured back into the reservoir. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you see, so God created the way for us to recycle the water. In this case, it's re-energizing the water. Okay.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It is really cool. It is really cool. What happens here in the cell? What is in the cell when we are talking here about the ATP synthase? What is the thing that moves the molecule here of ATP synthase in rotating? It's not using water in this case. What is it using now in here?
I'm not sure.
Okay, let me see. Haley says ATP. Well, the objective is to produce ATP, okay? So it's not using ATP. It's actually, remember when we were talking about the electron transport chain, okay? What is it that is being transported across the membrane? This was also from last lesson. What are these little balls here on this side? Okay.
Are those like carbon molecules or proteins or things like that?
Smaller. So it's not the electrons, it's the protons of hydrogen.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it's the protons of hydrogen. So remember, let me see. Okay, let me see. I think that I may have it in the presentation. No, I don't have it here in the presentation. But basically what happened was that during the electron transport chain, let's see, the concentration of hydrogen atoms is moved higher on one side than the other, okay? That is like putting the water up in the reservoir. But instead of water, we are using hydrogen protons. The electrons are transferred through the the cell membrane, okay? And then the protons go back through this machine, and this is what makes the machine move, okay? So you see the protons going into the ATP synthase, okay, and then being released inside the mitochondria in this case, okay? So it's really, really a very cool process, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Anna.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you very, very much. Thank you for your preparation. I really appreciate that. Okay.
You're welcome.
Kaya, would you like to unmute you? Okay, excellent. Okay. So
Okay,
in
can
this
you hear me?
lesson, yes, I can hear you. What can you tell me about this gospel principle, and how does this relate to the lesson of today? What do you think?
Okay, let me just get my notes real quick.
Yes.
Okay, so we learned about how energy is transformed, and something that I got from reading about the gospel principle was that all energy comes from Jesus Christ, and I related that back how Jesus Christ created the earth and all the world, so in that way he gives us energy, but he also gives us eternal life and energy through the atonement, which I thought was a good point. And then I read in Doctrine and Covenants 88 that truth shines and it's the light of Christ. And so we learned about Christ being the light of the world, and the best way to use the energy that is through that light is by serving and using that opportunity that that he gives us for good.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. So, you know, when I asked the question before, where does this ATP energy comes from? Okay, we have seen how it came, you know, from the breaking down of the carbon bonds and the glucose and this and that and everything. But ultimately, where does the energy come from?
Jesus Christ.
It does. Yes. Okay. Have you ever considered what happens when something dies?
Like where it goes?
Yeah, what happens? You know, so here we have been studying about these amazing reactions and processes, okay? And then all of a sudden, something happens and everything stops. Okay.
Well, the spirit of the body would go to heaven and the spirit world, and the body would stay on earth.
Yes, so the physical part stays in earth, okay, and our spirit goes to heaven, all right? So to me, it's very interesting to think about this, that what we call life and all the processes that we have been studying and seeing about how, you know, the energy is transferred and so on, that just shows to us our kind of little understanding of the physical part of the processes, okay? That we don't know too much about the interaction between the physical and the spiritual part, do we?
Not as much as Jesus does.
Not as much as Jesus does, okay? And that is what life is really all about, okay? You know, and it is amazing really how that is so interconnected. Okay, so as much as I know about these processes and all these, you know, chemical reactions and everything, it's really interesting that we still don't understand the whole interaction between that and the spiritual body, our spiritual body. And both of those together makes life possible. You know, it's really, really interesting to me. But that is really the kind of an ultimate expression of the light of Christ. What else can you tell me about this? What have been some of your thoughts about this, Kaya?
So I liked how it was talking about how, so it asked the question, how can we use the energy that we've been given? And so I was just thinking about how it, that God has given us so many gifts and abilities that we can use. So I really think that it ultimately goes back to using that the best we can, because he gave it to us freely, like he didn't have to do it. So the best way that we can show that we appreciate it is by serving him. And I think the ultimate service is being, for us to do, is just to be kind to his children, treat all of them how he would want us to treat them, and to share the gospel so it can spread throughout the world. And that, I think, really is being a light and representing Christ, which is what we have promised to do.
Excellent, excellent. You know, I love what you said about that we have received this light, this energy freely, okay, and so we need to also use it, okay, freely and abundantly in order to help others. I really love that. Very, very good. Okay. Well, thank you very much, guys. Okay. We are going to finish with a prayer. Jacob, would you like to say the prayer for us?
Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this day. We thank Thee for all the learning that we've been able to accomplish, all that we could learn about ATP and the light of Christ. And we ask Thou, please help us to remember this and to be able to use our knowledge. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Okay.